the worst thing you could say to anybody, let alone a 16-year-old, who's already overweight. Like, big yikes, but joke's on her. So.
Hey, empowered vegan lifers. Ella here with my co-host, Stephanie.
Good morning, Ella.
Good morning to you. I was just thinking how dedicated you are to be up at 6:45 on a Saturday morning to record this.
I was a different person yesterday.
When you agreed to do this?
I was very dedicated when I said, yes, let's do it at 6:45.
I know. I was like, are you sure? And you were like, yeah, let's do it.
You did. You even said that. And I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I was a very different person yesterday.
And yet here you are.
And yet here I am. Yes.
Well,
in all my glory. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm getting ready to go to the gym. And yes, for our listeners, I just did a little boo to Stephanie to see if I could get her adrenaline going. And she's like, you're very scary. And, and it reminded me, and this is appropriate for today's episode with Dani and Giacomo of VeganProteins.
Nice.
Yeah. I was doing a little workout the other day at the boxing gym, and we got into a little sparring drills, which we hadn't really done in this class. And this is where I shine. And so they put me with this guy, and we start kind of boxing around a little bit, and I popped him, Stephanie. And the look on his face, he was so surprised that I got him. I tagged him. It was awesome. I just have to say.
My gosh. Well, you are scary. Just maybe you should work on your booze just a bit.
Okay, it's fair enough. What's new in your world?
It is homecoming week here in Missouri. Yes. So I have two in high school, of course, and we are partying like it's 1999.
You were out late last night, huh?
I was out late last night, and it'll be a late night again tonight. And yeah.
How fun.
It is fun because the town we live in goes a little bit crazy for homecoming.
Really?
Yes, it is very much a very small town kind of feel with a big long parade and all these, traditions that they do, and so it was a lot. It's been a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. No, I bet.
Yeah.
We don't get that here in Miami. So I like hearing about that stuff.
Yeah. I don't think it's normal anymore. It used to be, at least when I was growing up, it used to be very, everybody looked forward to homecoming, and it was more than just a dance. It was like a whole community event, and that's very much the way it is still here. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I'm about to meet up with our guest from last week. Robbie Barbaro.
Nice. Yeah,
he moved to Miami Beach, and so he and his girlfriend are meeting me for yoga class this morning.
Oh, that is fantastic!
Isn't that fun?
Oh,
yeah. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you guys, that's a fascinating episode on mastering diabetes.
Yes.
And just a quick update before we dive in to today's episode: the piggies. I just want to let everybody know that piggies are doing better. Their hooves seem to be healing. They're walking around really well. They're not so much still back in the herd because if you guys have been listening, there's been some social issues with this social structure issues with these pigs on a Hogs and Kisses farm sanctuary, where two of the girls have kind of ousted the third. And we've kind of worked things out so that Dolly can have time in the barn. They're a little bit coexisting a little better.
Okay.
At the same time, we are still looking at starting to fundraise to bring in a couple young pigs so that Dolly can kind of be the matriarch.
Nice.
And kind of it looks like they may never bond again, these three sisters. So it looks like we're going to need to kind of have two herds. So yeah, we're thinking about bringing in 2 younger rescues that can form a herd with Dolly, and Dolly can be, she's the most submissive of the 3. And that's why they've probably ousting the weakest link. Yes. So I don't know. I'm excited. So we're we'll keep you guys posted on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of updates.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Bob. Give us an update on Bob.
Yes, Bob has just made himself at home here at my home. He is the most chill, kind of relaxed. I think about him as having this calm, assertive energy. He asserts for what he wants, but he's super calm. Shy's barks don't even startle him. He's just like, whatever. The other cats, they have a lot of anxious energy, those cats. And he just is kind of does his thing. And it's just been beautiful bringing his energy into this house. He is a gift.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So are you still thinking he is going to be adopted?
Stephanie, I have not made any definitive conclusions about that yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I will keep you posted.
Yeah, listeners, you and I, we should bet. We should bet on this. we should.
And then if you're going to bet, you might as well bet a time frame. because I'm not even actively looking at the moment. He's just, so who knows? I have predictions myself, but I'm not ready to make any final commitments yet.
Well, as it should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe we may have to have another discussion about that, because there's some reasons behind that are, it's going to take a lot longer than a few minutes to talk about those reasons and the ethical issues surrounding those reasons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I will spark your interest.
Yes, to be continued.
Yes, we might have to have a whole episode on that one. You and I, Stephanie.
Got you.
All right. Well, let's dive into today's episode. I'm super excited to bring this one to you guys. I met Giacomo and Dani at the Vegan Leadership Conference that was, several years ago,
right,
in West Palm Beach. They're just super cool people, dedicated, have been in this game a long time, know their shit when it comes to working out and bodybuilding and vegan nutrition. So let me tell you a little bit more about them. Giacomo is the co-founder of VeganProteins.com and also co-founded PlantBuilt.com, a nonprofit organization of strength-based vegan athletes who compete together to raise awareness for veganism and money for rescued animals at farm sanctuaries. Mm-hmm. Giacomo works in daily communications with coaching clients. Giacomo also uses his unique strengths to make sure the client is getting the best programming and guidance they can from the Vegan Proteins team. Giacomo has been vegan for over 10 years and involved with fitness for over 20 years in many different arenas, and specializes in coaching others and actively competes in bodybuilding and powerlifting specifically. Giacomo uses strength-based sports and traveling to various fitness events across the country with the Vegan Strong team to raise awareness for animal rights and welfare. Currently, he coaches clients online for Vegan Proteins and holds a certificate in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University. Now, the amazing Dani. Dani Taylor is a natural bodybuilding figure champion, the co-founder of VeganProteins.com, co-manager of the Vegan Strong team, and also co-founder of Team Plant Built, the largest team of vegan strength athletes in the world. She grew up in a very unhealthy household and reached 210 pounds by high school. After going vegan for ethical reasons, she began to lose weight and soon found a love for weightlifting. The combination of a plant-based diet and lifting caused her to lose 90 pounds and turn her health around, eventually going on to win multiple figure competition. Since then, she has become a certified strength and conditioning coach and has coached over 1,000 other vegans on their own bodybuilding journeys.
Wow.
Yeah. Their resumes are stacked and they are so super cool. You guys are going to love this conversation. Let's get to it. Dani and Giacomo, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. It's really cool.
Yeah, we were just talking about how fast the time has gone since I saw you last, which I think was 3 years ago.
I think so. Yeah.
And it literally was like a snap of a finger.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy how as you get older, time goes by so much faster.
Why is
I'm not
that?
a fan.
No.
I don't know.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, I'm so glad to have you guys on. We've got lots to talk about. I want to really cover your stories kind of in a nutshell and then get into some questions that our audience has for you, if that's cool.
All right. Yeah,
yes.
Cool.
So let's talk vegan story and fitness story. Who wants to start?
Giacomo can start.
Okay.
I didn't consent to that, but okay. I got to tell a story anyway. So I'll try to make my long story short because I have a way of like getting from point to point in a way. It's like, what did he just say? But I'll try my best. So I got into fitness at a young age. I did a competition. I got more and more into health and wellness. Someone had a heart attack and I wanted to help them. And I realized that I couldn't help other people until I learned more myself. So through learning, I found a path to a plant-based diet. And I found more and more truth. When my performance improved, recovery improved, I felt better. And it just seemed like the right move. I had no connection to animals whatsoever. I got more and more invested in the community. I dated an animal rescuer, and she definitely exposed me to a lot of the compassion and the connection as far as to what's on my plate and why that matters. That evolved into finding more community, and this is where I can really trail off. So met Dani, met Robert Cheek, met a lot of other people through a forum online, and then we started working on projects, advocacy work, and the rest is just one big blur. I think it's what got us here today.
Okay, that was a nutshell. That's cool.
Yeah, that certainly was.
Yes,
good job, Giacomo.
We might have to dive a little deeper later, but we'll start there. Cool. What about you, Dani?
So mine is almost the exact opposite of Giacomo's, actually, how he found fitness and then found veganism after that. I went vegetarian actually when I was 8 years old, much to my parents' dismay. They did not like that, but I realized oh man, chicken nuggets are actual chickens. What? I don't want to do that. And I was like, do we have to eat animals? I remember asking my mom and she was like, well, some people don't. And I was like, okay, I want to be one of those people. So awesome. I went vegetarian really young, but we were just a really poor family and we didn't have a lot of money for food. And unfortunately, unhealthy food is really cheap. So we ate a lot of unhealthy food. So even as a vegetarian, I grew up very overweight. By the time I was 16, I was 210 pounds or so, was not active at all. But I was writing a research paper for an English class in high school about vegetarianism. And I stumbled, the internet was much younger, and I stumbled across a website that kind of explained the meat and dairy connection and how dairy and eggs are, if you're supporting one, you're supporting them both. And right then and there, I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So I went vegan overnight, even though I didn't know anything about nutrition. I just stopped eating those things. And basically the next time I went to the doctor, they were like, oh, you've lost 30 pounds. And I was like, what? I was not eating well. I was just not eating dairy and eggs. But for a light bulb went off at that moment, wow, I might actually be able to change this situation. I might be able to get some control over this. And then I started deliberately learning about nutrition and going to the gym and learning from people there. And that's how I got into fitness. But big but, when I started working with a trainer, I was like, I want to build muscles like those girls. I want to build muscles like that. And she was like, well, if you won't eat eggs or take whey protein, this might be where the buck stops for you. And I was like 19 years old and I was not having that answer. So then I went back to the internet, and that's how I found Robert and Giacomo. And that was back in 2008. And the rest is kind of history.
Amazing. Well, the rest is not history because you've done so much with your lives and your careers. And so did you jump in right then knowing that this was your calling? When was it that you were saying, I'm veganism, fitness, this is what I'm all about?
So I can only speak for myself. I mean, I knew I was never not going to be vegan. Like that was never an option for me. But fitness just started as like a hobby and a passion and something I wanted to learn about. And it wasn't until a few years later, because back then, like there wasn't a lot of information on how to be vegan and an athlete. So this forum, which we keep mentioning, was veganbodybuilding.com, which used to be a forum. And everybody on there was just kind of learning from each other. Like, oh, what are you doing? How's that working for you? What are you doing? How's that working for you? And a few years of that, then there were newer vegans who were looking for help and looking for guidance and advice. And if like at that point we had some, so people started turning to us, like that older community, to help guide them. And eventually that turned into a full-blown career in fitness and helping people kind of change their life. And that's shifted over the years, like what that looks like, you know?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah. Giacomo, did you, as a male going vegan at the time you did, was that an extra challenge? Did you get judged by other people?
Honestly, I wasn't really too conscious or fearful of it. I feel like that's just kind of male culture. You don't really think about it much as far as that stereotype that's echoed out. But in hindsight, reflecting, probably some stuff there to work through. But in all honesty, I feel like it's sort of just worth it to put yourself out there for the purpose of something. It's not really about you per se. It's more about compassion, community, and the movement behind it all.
What about you, Dani, in terms of other people in your life who maybe were critical of your choices?
Everybody was critical of my choices. Everybody. And I don't want to say I cared. Like I didn't care what people thought, like in a way that it was going to stop me, but it certainly was frustrating to deal with that. I remember when I told my dad that I was going to go vegan, because I was already vegetarian and they already, like I said, weren't thrilled with that. He cried.
Oh my gosh.
And because he was like, you're gonna die. And I got that sentiment was echoed by so many people, friends, family. Somebody in my family actually told me, well, you're gonna get so much fatter because all you're gonna eat is carbs, which is like the worst thing you could say to anybody, let alone a 16-year-old, who's already overweight. Like big yikes, but joke's on her. So but that was like 20 years ago almost. And now most of my family is plant-based. So even though they were not about it in the beginning, most of them kind of like just by watching what happened, they started to turn their own ships around too, which is like one of the biggest accomplishments of my life, was to be able to inspire some of that. So very cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd like to ask other ethical vegans like yourself who went vegetarian and got the connection so young, like you and I, how you dealt with, or maybe still deal with, the fact that so many people don't have that connection, and you see them, from our eyes, or speaking from myself, looking at somebody eating this and then loving on their dogs, and it's tough. It can be really tough emotionally. How did you handle that now?
I handled it very differently when I was younger. I remember once I kind of like saw that connection, and then, there's you fall down like the documentary rabbit hole, especially, I mean, you can certainly do it now, there's more of it, but back then it was like, oh my God, I just found the truth. Right. And I was like, if I can just show this to people, they're going to get it, because how can you not get it? And I remember showing it to people and them being like moved and touched, and then not changing anything. And it was really depressing to me. I was angry. I didn't understand how anybody could be that way. And I thought like, I would be like, you're evil. Like if you can watch this and still keep doing that, you're evil. And I mean, I think that's the very like black and white thinking of a 16-year-old, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I got older, I mean, obviously I don't condone it. I don't think it's what people should be doing, but I have more empathy for the fact that, you know, it's not easy for everybody to just make a change for so many reasons, for cultural reasons, for financial reasons, for where they live. Like there are barriers that other people have that maybe I didn't have. And I now feel much more strongly that every step that someone makes towards cutting animal products out of their life is a positive, and we need to celebrate every one of those steps. Even if I would love it if everybody just woke up and was vegan tomorrow, I'm not going to I'm not going to give someone crap because they, you know, they're putting almond milk in their coffee, but they're still putting cheese on their sandwiches at lunch. Like I'm going to be happy for them and help them and try to be a positive, supportive resource in their life rather than like an angry, judgmental one.
Yes, I am so glad you said that. And I've been asking my guests lately about this because it is really tough. And Giacomo, do you have anything to add now that, you know, you are in it for the compassion as well?
Well, I definitely want to echo the sentiment that's being talked about right here, and how there's that anger and then acceptance and then openness to some people are not going to make that full shift, and that doesn't mean that they're not contributing toward the greater good. So while I have my own reasons, and I feel like when curiosity gets into like pure, like to change and people go full vegan, right? That's all well and good, but I'm still willing to put myself out there and be like, okay, well, you know, plant-based foods, and here are resources that are environmentally friendly or whatnot, just to keep the door open, while still standing ground on like, yeah, there's always more that can be done, you know, instead of being too judgy about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we can get tons of people to make steps, it can be a much, you know, more effective form of change, right, than a few people going totally vegan.
Yes.
Even though,
yeah, I saw some quote that was something like, we need 1 million people doing it imperfectly rather than 1,000 people doing it perfectly.
Yes. Yeah.
And even though it's hard for me to put myself in the mind of somebody that can't just kind of cut that out, because that to me, like, you know, I don't see those things as food. I understand that other people do, but to me, like, it's not food. But I still understand that realistically, more people kind of being like half vegan or semi-vegan is way better than a tiny amount of people being totally vegan for the planet and for the animals as a whole. And it also pushes the economic demand in a different direction more than a few fringe vegans. So I appreciate it all.
Yes. Well, you know, having a vegan business is, to me, a form of activism, right? You're moving the needle with your businesses, and you have several. Can you talk about Plant Built and then your journey into the competition world? And I know, Giacomo, you're doing both bodybuilding and powerlifting, if I'm correct. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the fitness competition journey.
You want to talk about it? You talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about Plant Built.
Okay, cut me off whenever. I don't mind. So the fitness world, what can I say? This has evolved so much since we started doing this. I'll say like arguably around 20 years ago in the physique and strength-based world. And vegans now are more concerned about reaching the mainstream than their own personal achievements in the fitness mainstream world. Mm-hmm. They're more concerned about reaching the fitness mainstream world than their involvement in it organization-wise. Vegans are more concerned with helping other competitors and fitness enthusiasts and those looking to get into the health space be introduced to plant-based foods and to veganism than they are about how far they could take it competitively. right? So I think those are the larger reasons at work where things are at now. It's like, how can we cast the water and how can we reach more people? Yeah. And then of course we do what we love. We work together with Vegan Strong, we work together with Plant Built, and Plant Built has been dormant for a pretty long time now. I think it's been about 4 years, give or take, but it's certainly, I feel like it's done a lot to inspire and to create more movement.
I'm going to cut him off to tell you what Plant Built is.
Yes. Tell us.
So it's funny. I'm actually wearing a Plant Built hoodie today. So Plant Built it's the largest team of vegan strength athletes in the world. And it's something that we put together in 2013 when we realized like there were these people going out and competing. There were vegans going out and competing in bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, kettlebell, whatever. And they would go out and they would do well, but they were the only vegan in the competition. So it was really easy for people to write that off as a fluke. Like, oh, that's so weird that vegan won, whatever, and just move on. But Giacomo had the idea like, man, there's so many of us all over the country. What if we just like all got together and kind of took on a really big competition as a team? And we started doing that in 2013. And we know that like, it's pretty generally accepted that being plant-based or vegan does help with performance in endurance sports. There's tons of runners and cyclists and swimmers who are vegan, but you don't hear about it as much with bodybuilding and strongman and powerlifting. So that's what we focused on. And now we have a team of like 75 athletes from all over the world. And we've gone out and competed for, I think, 5 years or so. I think 5 seasons we went out and did it, because you can't just do it constantly because people need breaks from competing. And then we were going to do it and then COVID happened, and it might happen in 2022. Keep that on the DL. But so we went out, and the very first year we made up 10% of the competition and we took home 40% of the trophies. Wow. So even though when we walked in the door, people laughed at us, like they literally laughed at us because we had hoodies that said like vegan muscle team on them. And people were like, what is that joke over there? But then by the end of the day, people were like, what are these vegans doing that is getting them all of these trophies? So we realized it's actually a really powerful form of activism to go out there and compete as a vegan. And it seems to work better if you do it in groups.
Right. That's amazing. I know 2007, I only competed once. I don't know if you knew that.
I did.
Yeah. Just once. I wanted to do exactly what you guys are saying. Giacomo is like, this is a form of activism, in that it's not really about me winning. It's about me showing the world that it's possible. Right. And so that's just phenomenal with 75 athletes. That's incredible. All right. So I've got a few questions, kind of topics that some of our audience wants to hear about. And what I want to do is give you 5 of these, but with a 30-second time limit. So this would be a challenge for you, Giacomo. And then we can go and dive into any of them deeper. Yes, he's getting out I'm going to get out my timer too. So can keep you accountable.
It's a lightning round.
It's a lightning round. And I've got another sprint round at the end, but that's coming up. Okay. So what I'll do is just kind of throw out a topic and you have 30 seconds to talk about it. Whoever wants to talk about it, you can decide on the topic. All right. So the first one is, what is or are the most common lifting myth or myths?
The most common lifting myths relative to veganism, or in general?
In general. I'll start. The idea that if women lift weights, they're going to get really bulky. That's the biggest one that I know of.
Yes.
Other big lifting myths, that you need to just eat a ton of food, like to dirty bulk, in order to build muscle. Don't have to do that. Got any other ones off the top of your head?
Common lifting myths.
He's new to this, obviously. I would say I would avoid lifting fasted. That's a big one, that people like to lift fasted, and I'm not a big fan of that.
Okay, 30 seconds.
All right.
Okay. What do you think about the vegan keto diet?
Come on, Giacomo.
Keto, Atkins, it's all one big joke. Why would you not want to utilize carbohydrates for energy? Why make it harder on your body to use calories for energy? Period. End of story. Hard stop.
Boom. That's all you needed. That was fantastic. That was like 4 seconds. That was great. All right. What is a top or a couple top fat loss tips for people?
My number one fat loss tip is to make sure you're not under eating too much. I get it. You have to under eat to lose fat, but a lot of people are under eating so much that they end up binging like multiple times. And that's a horrible cycle. So that would be my number one fat loss tip, is make sure your deficit is smart and small and manageable.
Cool. Okay. What is a dumb thing or a couple dumb things you've done as a bodybuilder?
Yeah, bro, a whole podcast about this. I've drank a half gallon of milk and needed to go home early from school because that was a mistake.
Ouch.
I was 15, so there's that. Other common mistakes, overloading a bar and hurting myself.
Lifting with poor form.
That's Giacomo. I got lots of old aches and pains and imbalances that'll never go away because of lifting with poor form, for sure. Not trying to increase the weight, like focusing on movement. I'm sure there are more.
I did the deficit thing. The reason I know that one is because I did the deficit thing. Yeah.
All right. We'll get back into that because I think that's really important. Any thoughts on motivation or willpower when people are like, I just don't know, I cannot seem to get motivated? What's going on?
I think motivation is kind of BS, honestly. And that is what I tell people, that motivation, I don't know if we can swear on the podcast, so I'll just say motivation is BS and discipline is everything. It all comes down to discipline. Some days you're going to feel motivated. Some days you are not going to feel motivated. But if it's important to you, you should do it anyway. And the discipline will build habit, and then it will become just something you do almost involuntarily, and you won't even need the motivation anymore.
Mm-hmm. What do you do if a client comes to you, they're all gung-ho, and then kind of halfway into their program, you kind of see that you're losing them. They're kind of not checking in anymore. What do you do to help that person?
I like to nudge them. I like to hold them accountable by reaching out to them at least 2-3 weeks in a row. I like to talk through whatever's going on in their environment outside of training and diet, because they need to adapt to the stress of training and nutrition, not have their environment adapt to them. Sorry, I got that the other way around. So yeah, like figure out what's going on, like reach out to them, throw some support their way. It's more than just, hey, did you do your plan? Did you not do it? And why?
And sometimes you got to change your program a little bit too. Sometimes it was either too hard for them from the get-go, more than they could actually commit to. They bit off more than they could chew, or maybe they need a little bit more. Maybe it's not stimulating enough.
Got it. Okay. So can we get back, Dani, to your common mistake in bodybuilding? And can you talk a little bit more about that and what that looked like for you and how you got through that?
Yeah. So for me, it was actually pretty bad, and it might be a little triggering for some people to hear. So I guess I'll just put that out there. So I was really young. I was like 18 years old, and you're still growing at 18 years old. And I probably should have been eating a lot, but I was working with a coach, which I thought was the very responsible thing to do, right? I worked with a coach who was a registered dietitian. This is the cream of the crop, basically. But she had me eating way too little. Probably around 1,500 calories a day, like while I was training hard, and only 18, I was very active. And I would be so hungry by the weekends that I would find myself like losing control around food, which was a thing that had never happened to me before. And I remember being like, hey, this is going on. Like, what's that about? Because I just had no idea. And it eventually just kept spiraling. I kept being like, you're going to do better on Monday. You're going to stick to this diet better starting on Monday. And I would try, and I would do it for a couple days, but it was like, I just picture myself like with a shovel, just consistently digging myself into a deeper hole of like calorie debt, basically, that my body needed that paid back. And it was doing it however it could, which in this instance was binging. So even though it was like not a good behavior, I now recognize it as something that was my body trying to protect me. And now looking back, and this is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about coaching, is because of this whole thing and how common it is. I realized that none of that probably had to happen at all. If I had just been eating enough in the first place, none of those patterns would have become ingrained. And I see it so frequently, especially where, like, you know, so many women think, I actually just made a video on the history of where this idea came from. So many women think they have to eat 1,200 calories a day. It's like the magic number, right? Why?
Yes.
Where did this come from? And, you know, when people do that, they find themselves in these binge restrict cycles until they eventually give up, or worse, end up with like a full-blown eating disorder. So, you know, getting that amount of food that's totally unique to you, right, as quickly as you can is really, really important to success, not just of your goals, but of like staying a sane, healthy, whole human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important to not lose sight of that because you want 6-pack abs, you know?
Right. Yeah. And there's such a challenge when it comes to being in fitness. And if you don't have the confidence, right, and don't have the body image, and love yourself for who you are, then all of that can get really tangled, right? From experience of saying, no, this is just me being fit, and this is me following my macros, and it's crazy. And I would like to ask you, what's the deal? And we work with a lot of people with disordered eating and eating disorders as well. What's the deal with peanut butter? What is your take on that? Because what fitness person don't you know that's like, I've probably eaten an entire jar of peanut butter at one point?
Peanut butter is like the number one trigger food for people in fitness.
Yes.
They're like, I can't have it in my house. And I'm like, we're going to work on that.
Yes.
You're going to be able to have peanut butter in your house and it's going to be okay.
Yes.
But I think that because, you know, so many people, when they get into fitness, they go to like this clean eating list of 12 foods that they think are okay and everything else is bad. But peanut butter is one of them. And it's far and away the tastiest, densest thing on that list. So that becomes like the treat food. And then over time, they feel like they can't trust themselves with the peanut. It's the peanut butter is bad.
Right.
And I'm laughing, it's not funny, but it's really common.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it happens. And I want to see a world where everybody can feel comfortable with peanut butter in their life.
Yes. Yeah. For me, it was peanut butter and granola.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't the only one with granola as a trigger food. So one of my clients right now is like, when you said granola, she's like, that was me. I'm like, oh my God, another granola person.
Yeah. I have seen granola or any kind of cereal at all.
Yeah.
Is a big one also. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. What do you find as the biggest challenge working with people that are coming from like, okay, I went to a trainer and they said, I have to eat meat to be able to reach my goals. I don't want to eat meat. Why is the fitness industry so behind when it comes to telling people you literally cannot get results without animal protein? It seems you're more into the fitness scene than I am, so maybe things have changed a little bit. But what's your take on that? Why are we behind?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I got a couple thoughts, and
okay.
I think there's a reason behind it all. Instead of getting fixated on the meat or the whatever, I think when it comes to fitness, so people that have done it feel like it's their formula that's going to work, and it's also and it's discipline more than anything. So they don't look outside of something that they see that works, and they push that on others, whether it's performance-enhancing drugs, whether it's meat, whether it's eating a restrictive diet of the same whatever, the same foods. I know. So 5 years ago, right? But whatever.
Yeah.
To the point though. And whether it's whatever, like strictly on macros or what have you, it's like the fitness industry is so discipline and regiment oriented that it's hard to think outside the box, and they just wind up pushing people over the edge with the same things that work until they don't, or like never worked all along. Especially for other people when they start to work with them. Oh, I did this, so naturally I'm going to show other people how to do it.
Right.
I would say that in the scientific literature that's coming out in the last few years, there is much more support of the fact that, yes, you can do these things plant-based, but it takes so long for that message to like trickle into the gyms, because there's so much in at least the bodybuilding and powerlifting type of scenes. There's a lot of like lore to it from like, you think the 1970s, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the guys would just tell each other what they were doing in the locker room and they would just copy it or copy it out of the back of a magazine. And like that kind of culture in bodybuilding still persists. Like someone has the secret and I'm going to find their secret and I'm going to do it. Even though like there's oodles of scientific literature that says, you know, there's 100 different ways to do this. And some variables don't even matter if you change them. One of them being, at least in terms of muscle building and strength, whether you're getting your protein from, you know, a steak or lentils. Like from a muscle building standpoint, there's no difference as long as you're getting the same amount of actual protein. So, but it takes a while for that to hit the 20-year-olds in the gym. So
yeah, that's for sure. What do you think of, you talk about the bro foods and what chicken, broccoli, oatmeal with protein powder, you know, all those foods. What about the whole cheat meal on the Sunday cheat meal for bodybuilders? What are your thoughts on that?
So we employ, not with everybody. So we're very particular about who we kind of do that sort of a thing with, but we never call it a cheat meal because I hate that terminology so much. We will call it like an untracked meal or a free meal, and only with certain people, because some people are just not in a place where that's going to be helpful for them mentally yet. But for some people, there's benefit to it. So some people doing that, it's just going to be very triggering. It's going to turn into a binge. They're not there yet. For other people, they are so used to eating the exact same thing Monday through Friday, even if that's not what I would suggest that they do. That's what they're doing. And we want them to start introducing some new foods that maybe they're a bit nervous around so that they can start to learn, oh, I can have some of this and the world doesn't implode on itself. So it really depends. But just from a bodybuilding, like a purely bodybuilding perspective, there is, and I think this is where the cheat meal came from, there is a huge benefit to having a couple of higher calorie days throughout the week. So I think that's probably how this started, is people would just eat their bro foods Monday through Saturday. And then on Sunday, go eat like, I don't know, 5 cheeseburgers or something. And then they'd get better results, not because it was cheeseburgers, but because they just happened to be eating more on that day of the week. So it's tricky. It's tricky when you're working with actual human beings where you want to make sure you're helping them move forward without pushing them off a cliff.
Got it. If any of our audience is thinking about the possibility of competing one day, are there people that you would recommend, yes, go for it, and other people, be careful with that, I'd warn against it, pros, cons, that sort of thing?
I recommend everyone think long and hard about it before they do it. It's never like, oh, you're excited about this and you can do it. Like, just go for it. Like, no.
Yeah.
Understand what it entails. Know that you will be in dangerous territory post-show, and that your safety is something to be concerned about going in, so that you front load your expectations and you make the right decisions and you have the right kind of support and you know what you're getting into, so that you can learn things that are temporary and then unlearn them after the fact and get to a healthy place, as your body also takes time to heal. It's a very tricky thing to do.
It's a slippery slope for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people kind of treat it as a bucket list item. Like, oh, I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition. Like it's a 5K, like they're just going to do it. And they end up getting really, really hurt physically, but absolutely mentally, especially. So I would say if you're thinking about it, do like a ton of research, talk to a ton of competitors, because there's this idea when we see somebody who's like a bodybuilder competition ready, the general consensus is that that person is super fit and super healthy. Like that is, if you're just walking down the street and asked a regular Joe Schmo, they'd be like, wow, that person's so fit. But the fact is that is like the most depleted and crappy feeling that person has probably ever felt in their life, and it only looks good on stage and it only looks good in a photo, and then it goes away really fast. So the idea of using a bodybuilding competition to get healthier is a lie. But also, where was I going with that? There was another big myth. Oh, the person that I would steer away from it. If you think that getting bodybuilder in competition shape, if you think that's going to improve your body image, that is probably the biggest lie of all, because it doesn't. And if you have issues with your body image to start, they're going to get worse on the other side, because you're about to see yourself look in the quote unquote best shape you've ever seen. And then you're going to see it disappear because it's not maintainable. And you're always going to compare yourself to that forever. So you could see how if you are not ready for that, it can really do some damage to your mental health situation. So just do a lot of research. We say this as people who love the sport. We want to see people compete in the sport and do well with it and come out healthy and sane and whole. And we see a lot of people who don't regularly. So it's almost like we come from like a harm reduction standpoint when it comes to bodybuilding.
It makes so much sense. And how you just explained it right now, just hit the nail on the head. So good. So good. All right. One quote I saw from you, Dani, was it had something to do with suffering or not suffering for the sake of suffering. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, I don't know the exact quote, but it's basically that there's no point in suffering for the sake of suffering. So I call it like hustle culture, like hardcore culture. And it's really prominent in like the business field, I'm sure you've seen, but also in the fitness sphere of like, oh, I'm just going to outwork everyone and I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I don't eat sugar and I don't eat carbs and I don't eat fat and I don't do this. And all of this stuff that doesn't make any sense and just sounds like it makes your life miserable. But people like slap it on like a badge. Like, I suffer more than anybody else suffers, so I must love this the most. And it's a really self-destructive way to live. But unfortunately, it sells really well. So a lot of fitness programs promote themselves as being really hardcore because they're going to push you to the max and you're going to get all these results. And you might get really good results, but as soon as that is over, you're going to collapse into a heap and go right back to where you were, or worse, because it was never sustainable in the first place. So, to reach any goal requires a little bit of suffering. I think there's no need to suffer more than the absolute bare minimum effective dose of suffering is what we're looking for here. Not just extra, just for fun. That's just masochism.
Got it. Cool. All right. Well, I want to hear what's next for you guys, what projects you're working on. I know you still have VeganProteins. You've got the podcast, Muscles by Brussels. What else is going on in your world and what can we expect from you?
Well, at the office over here, we are working on another course. We're going to introduce a muscle building course, probably by the end of the year, I would imagine, but don't quote me on the timeline. We are forecasting into 2022. I hate to be optimistic about that because we just have no control over what's going to happen in this world.
We used to go out and go to events a lot and promote veganism at these events. And obviously we haven't been able to do that for a while. So we have some on the calendar for 2022 and we're hoping that they come to fruition.
Yeah.
But mostly we have just been keeping our heads down this past year and working with our clients. Like, that has been the number one focus, because when the whole world shifted, right? Everybody shifted, everybody's mentality, morale, where they could train, how they could train, what food they could get, everything changed. So we've just been really, really trying to be like bedrock for those folks. So VeganProteins is where we have been directing most of our energy this past year. And that's been going really well. We love what we do. We wouldn't change it at all.
Amazing. All right. Well, we're going to put the links to all of your everything that you have going on in the show notes. I want to end with one more sprint round, but this one's more personal. So I want to hear from both of you on each of these. Okay.
Okay.
Giacomo, are you rolling your eyes at me? No, don't do that to me again. Okay. What's this should be maybe easier. I don't know. One food that you could literally eat every day for the rest of your life.
Popcorn.
Ice cream.
Tofu, tempeh, or neither?
Tofu.
Tofu.
What non-human animal do you share the most qualities with, if you had to pick one?
Koala. Koala and hummingbird.
Shut up. Okay, now I have to know why.
Giacomo says I'm real cute and cuddly, but if I'm angry, like stay away from me. And also, if I could sleep 20 hours a day, I probably would.
Nice. What's up with the hummingbird thing?
I love birds, and hummingbirds are fast and quick and cute, I guess. And
they're cute and they're always showing off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. What's a random talent or a quirk that you have?
Oh man, I used to work in the circus, so I can hula hoop on fire and put a 4-inch nail in my head and eat flames.
You're kidding.
Oh,
you're serious?
I'm serious.
You did not include this in your story. Yeah. This is what
two truths and a lie. That's what I should use that, but no, it's all true, really.
Shut up. I did not know this, Dani.
Yeah, great party tricks.
Oh my, do you do that? Like, can you still do that stuff?
I just, at a bachelor party last week, I showed it to all my family. They're like, you cannot put that nail in your head. And I was like, here we go. Yeah, it was a bachelorette party to be remembered. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my jaw is like on the floor right now. That's so amazing. What about you, Giacomo?
Stop that, babe.
Yeah, right?
Leading with that, I can leave on my ear.
Right.
It's, yeah, nothing compared to that. I'm sure there's more, but
that I was never expecting something that freaking awesome. That is cool. All right. You have one wish that will be granted for you tomorrow. What is that wish?
Oh, wow. That's a big, I wish everybody would go vegan. If they just woke up and everybody was vegan, that would be cool.
I'll go with world peace since we can have 2 wishes.
There we go. No, it's funny. I asked that last one. And of course, that's the first thing that pops in almost everyone's head. So it's not a very original question, but it's interesting. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, taking the time. This was fabulous. And we'll direct everybody to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. It was a lot of fun.